Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Miss Camay Show. I'm your host, Miss Camay, and I'm broadcasting live from the entertainment capital of the world. You know it. Same time, same place every week. I'm so excited for my interview today. I think I say that traditionally in all my interviews with all my guests, but I'm always very, very excited for each and every guest that I have that uses this platform to share their story and a message to the world. So my guest today is Christal Keyes. Welcome to the show, Christal.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and where are you coming to us from today?
Ohio. OH.
Oh, yeah,
Ohio.
LA.
Yes.
So how are things going on in your neck of the woods right now? What's going on in your current climate over there?
Well, if we look at it from a COVID-19 perspective, there have been a lot of changes. Even as I was out and about yesterday, usually around the 5 o'clock time frame, it's super busy, and it was not. I'm like, okay, this must be, the COVID-19 still must be affecting a lot of the businesses still, and everyone's not back yet because in the area that I was in, usually it's the traffic is bumper to bumper. So other than that, work environment's going pretty good. Everyone's just adjusting to the work at home life. So
Yeah. I've been working from home for a very long time. So when COVID happened and everyone's like, oh my God, we have to work remotely, I'm like, yeah, hello.
yes.
So I love
Yes,
it. I love it. It's definitely safe. And you can do a lot better when you're not distracted. You don't have those office interruptions,
that's correct.
So I want to talk about you a little bit and give people a little bit of history about you. You're an advocate for social responsibility and goodwill throughout the
Yes,
local community. You have a passion for affecting systemic change in a way that brings individuals together to support and strengthen workplace civility. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know you have a background in the financial industry
yes,
and in the banking industry, and you most recently have been a vice president of risk management, which is huge, it's a big
yes,
responsibility.
yes.
So how do you bring people together to support and strengthen stability in the workplace?
Well, the number one thing is communication, I believe, Camay, and with the structure of the way a lot of financial institutions, corporate America is, it could be a little difficult. And then with the current situation of COVID-19, it has become a little more challenging. So you have to think outside the box, have activities on a weekly basis that brings those individuals together. And then also, I utilize my change management methodology certification. So I am certified ProSci, ADCAR, and in there we are making sure that the employee is aware of the changes and trying to bring everyone on board where it is a smooth transition. So a lot of legwork, and there has to be consistency because in the midst of change, the last thing you want is it to be unstable in how you carry out the change. So that's what plays a big role is that change management methodology.
Yeah, I just was consulting with a client of mine yesterday, and she was expressing to me about changes in her workplace that she saw happening. She witnessed it, she saw it, but nobody came to her and sat down and had a conversation. There was no office meeting that says, "Hey, we're doing this or we're doing that." And it really left her feeling extremely insecure. And there's some issues going on in her workplace, some workplace bullying experiences. So in addition to those bad behavior, you bring in non-communication, it can really, magnify or exacerbate those conditions in the workplace as well. Would you agree with that? Is that a tangible experience?
Absolutely, absolutely. And along with the awareness, you have to make sure that you create and cultivate that desire. So what's in it for the employee, these changes? And then just beware of making sure they are knowledgeable of the changes that are taking place. So if we say work from home and it's color coded, then just make sure that everyone's knowledgeable to know, when am I supposed to go into the office? When am I supposed to work from home? So that there's no confusion. And then we want to make sure you provide them with those tools, so the ability to help carry out the change in the corporation. And then you got to do some reinforcement, is to make sure that everybody's on the same page
Right.
when it first starts, and then 6 months down the line. So
yeah, of course. So what's a good idea to do that? You know, for people who are watching our interview and tuning in to you, and let's say they're an employee, and perhaps, you know, they notice some opportunities in their workplace where they could essentially, you know, approach management about this topic. So, you know, you as a manager, you being a VP in risk management, you know, you have staff that you supervise, right? And so changes implemented, you give the direction, you know, you believe you're being clear, and you believe that your communication is easy to understand. But if you just simply leave your staff or your team, if you will, with instruction, there is a high probability that there is some miscommunication, misunderstanding. And so how do you address that as a VP, as someone who's leading, you know, a team? How do you make sure that your team understands the plan, the change, and then the execution, and then their responsibility to it?
Yes, no, that's a great question. And actually, it leads into one of the topics that I'll be talking about on my YouTube channel this weekend, of scapegoat. So a lot of times, especially in this type of environment, when there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of uncertainty, it's very easy for some individuals to point the finger and use one person or a group of people as the scapegoat. So in my opinion, in order to stay out of the scapegoat, because scapegoating is a part of workplace bullying, and we not only do it within the workplace, but a lot of times in society, socially, we'll blame one race, we'll blame, you know, one culture. And so scapegoating is a form of bullying. Well, in order to make sure you stay out of the phrase of becoming a target of scapegoating, you have to ask questions, asking the right questions. What is the end state, or what are we looking to accomplish at the end of this project, task, program? And bringing it to the forefront. What are some barriers that we foresee is happening? What are our resources that are available to help ensure that we're all on the same page with bandwidth? Because a lot of times that's what's happening. I've been hearing a lot of organizations are cutting back. And so then everyone's bandwidth is not as loose as it used to be. And so you want to, so you want to make sure that you are all on the right page. And so asking those questions to ensure you have the end state, what the successful end state looks like, and then you go from there.
Yeah, great question. In my management experience in the past, you have to, you know, first of all, I know this is something that you do as well as a manager. You see greatness in each individual, and each individual has their own greatness, their own strengths in the workplace, right? And we highlight those highs, we highlight their greatness, and when we put them in roles or we give them responsibility that really strengthens their greatness or is well aligned with their greatness, we set them up for success, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
As managers, and as managers, we are responsible for leading that and guiding that and directing that. And just as a manager can lead a great employee to success, a manager, a leader, a person in a position of authority can also lead that person to a failure.
That's correct.
So, so which brings us to the topic of workplace bullying. You mentioned your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Workplace Keys to Success. I've watched several of your videos, and you actually are a member of the Breaking the Silence Against Workplace Bullying group on Facebook. You're very active in that group, and you always share your content in that group. And your platform is bullying in the workplace. And you offer tools, valuable information. I've actually learned several things from you and watching your channel on the topic.
Well,
So, yeah. So, how did you get to the topic? I mean, you know that workplace bullying happens in every industry in the world. So, how were you introduced to workplace bullying?
Well, honestly, I think, when you're growing up and you watch TV shows or movies and maybe you're too young to watch them. Well, my mother is from West Virginia. And so I watched The Coal Miner's Daughter, and it probably at an age that I was too young. But it actually sparked something in me that, okay, I'm gonna be an advocate for that person, that target, that person that's being victimized. And so I've gotten into a little bit of trouble even as a child, standing up for the target. A little
Yeah.
situations I've gotten in over my head, and my older brother had come in and help assist. But I always take the role as the advocate for anti-bullying. At least I believe that really to be a passion of mine. Now, my younger brothers and sisters may say differently. They may go back to some incidences growing up, but I really believe in being that advocate.
It's sibling rivalry. That's not the same. It's
Yes.
sibling rivalry.
Right. But being that target, I have been in situations where I have been bullied. So not just as a child, but in the workplace. So I have been a target of workplace bullying. I have been a bystander. I've been within the audience of workplace bullying. And just because of the way I'm geared, I have never been what I call like a useful goon or a part of the group that attacks or victimizes the target. That's just that's how I was brought up, and so that's what I believe in. Well, as a yes. And as a bystander, I'm going to tell you, I have had even the experience has been even as just as taxing as a target. So it has been just as stressful. It's very unfortunate to watch something that you cannot control, and it's not even you, but you know that it's wrong and you want it to stop. So it's been very difficult to just sit back as a bystander and do nothing. And so I make it a point to always do something, even if it's just going to that target later and saying, listen, I thought you did a good job. This is what I thought, keep your head up, may even give them advice on how to stop workplace bullying for themselves. Yeah.
Sure. And as a manager, you are well within, I guess, a safe position, to be able to do that because you are a supervisor or manager. So your staff is going to take heed to what you say to them. So Absolutely. Let me ask this. We've talked a lot about, the bystander. I've had many interviews with other people on the topic of workplace bullying. Most of them targets. I have yet to consult with a bystander. And so I want to dive into that a little bit. And I want you to share, your experience as a manager. So I'm assuming that you've been in management and you've seen someone else in management or another leader bully, someone in your office, perhaps maybe a peer of yours or subordinate of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so, of course, no names mentioned, we're maintaining complete confidentiality in this interview, but I want to know how you experienced it when you saw it. And obviously you identified with it right away, what it was. So I'd like to know what your experience was and what you did about it. What was your first plan of action when you saw this going on as a bystander?
Sure. So the one that is most prevalent and most, to me, detrimental is I had an employee who was being bullied by my manager and by my manager's manager. And I just believe in human decency first and foremost. But second, as a manager, I have an obligation to ensure that my staff, I'm preparing them for a civil work environment.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who is threatening that civil work environment. It is my duty as a manager to speak up, to say something. And so, unfortunately, a bully can choose multiple targets. So I was in a
Right.
situation several years back where they had chose one target after the other, and I saw it. But then it got to my employee. So I had seen them ruffle feathers, caught wind of it, but it got to my employee. And what was happening, if I could just set up the backdrop of it, we had at this particular company, we had a rotational program, and the college students are able to come in, do some work within the department, and if if they work out, then they have the possibility of being a full-time employee.
Okay.
Well, my employee was seasoned. She was near retirement. I believe she was due to retire at the end of that year that we were in.
Okay.
And I saw in meetings, it first began, because it starts slow. So it began
Correct.
as them comparing. So they were comparing my seasoned employee with the new rotational employee who was not really an employee yet, permanent employee.
Right.
Well, that's a no-no. Yes, you
Yes.
don't compare, and you definitely don't compare when it was in a group setting. And then you don't compare a seasoned employee to a new employee who's fresh out of college.
Yeah.
They bring different things.
Age.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And so I said something. So I stood up to my manager. I said, listen, I don't think it's a good idea. You're referencing them. You're comparing them in the meetings. I said, if my employee, if she wanted to, she could file ageism. Looked, and because this was years ago, so before COVID, so we were still face to face, and so he got very irritated. So I felt a need to also go. I went to HR, not only for my employee to let them know what was going on, because you have to follow the chain of commands, whether we believe that HR is on our side or not. It's good to have it documented, because they'll ask that. Did you let HR know this? So I did.
Correct.
So I made sure that all my ducks were in order, documentation was in order. So I honestly even went to his manager also. But then I soon found out she was in on it. They really wanted this rotational worker in, and they wanted my employee out. And they were doing it in such an aggressive, demeaning way. That's the sad part. I mean, just takes it. Yeah. It just like rips your zest out. It just really messes with you when you're the target or the bystander, and especially when it's this type of a bystander. And so what I did.
Correct.
Yes. And so what?
And not to interrupt you.
Sure.
But when you saw that. When you saw the ageism going on, how did you feel? Like, how did you feel internally? How did you feel? Because you identified with it, but it's wrong. And I think a lot of bystanders do. They see it and they're like, oh, wow, I don't think that was right. That was really wrong. And they have these, this experience, this emotional or physical experience being a bystander and witnessing that abuse. And they're filled with fear. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to come forward and report it.
Exactly.
So, and maybe your experience is different because you are, like you said, I stood up, I was like, hey, this is wrong. I reported it. I was to this manager, I was to that manager. Encourage and being extremely bold and fearless about the situation. But you had to experience what you witnessed in some way. And how was that?
Anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety. So I was even stressed. I'm telling you, it was almost as if I was the one being bullied. So a lot of anxiety. I even had to take like a day off after there's this big one incident happened I took the next day off for a sick day because it was just too much. I woke up that morning with every intent of starting the day off, and it was just like a ton of bricks where it's like everything was in slow motion. So I figured, well, if I'm going slow
Yeah.
motion, I will never make it to work on time. So it's a lot of anxiety that goes into even being a bystander of workplace bullying.
Yeah, yeah. So you go to your boss, you go to your boss's boss, you report it to HR, and so
Mm-hmm.
then what? You're the manager. This is your employee. This is
Yes,
your team. Somebody who's got a lot of tenure. Yeah, she's getting ready to retire, but that experience is hard to replace. That is
yes,
hard to replace. That
yes,
experience and that knowledge.
yes.
So what did you do next?
Well, I went to the Civil Rights Commissioner's office, and I knew that I had to do something outside because sometimes if you file a complaint internally, sometimes it helps, sometimes it's taken care of, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to go outside of the organization, EEOC, Civil Rights Commissioner's office. So I chose at this time the Civil Rights Commissioner's office. Just knew a couple of people within that realm, so I thought, okay, well, I'll start here. Well, and I knew that I had to do something more externally because I saw that the atmosphere, when you're in a workplace bullying atmosphere, you are bound to make mistakes. And I don't even know
Right.
if the bully understands that, or maybe they do. I don't know, but you're bound to make more mistakes. And so you're setting up an atmosphere of hostility. And so everyone's uncertain, and everyone else saw it. So I heard this chatter from others. So I knew that it was putting a strain on the work environment that I feel meticulously set up to be civil. So they're messing with stuff that I work hard for, from anywhere from doing strength finders to know everyone's strength and team building activities that I had built up over the years. Well, this was tearing that all down. And so I knew that I needed to do something externally. So I went to the Civil Rights office, paid for parking, and I had meticulous documentation. And I'm sitting there, and I'm telling my story, and I'm full, right? So you know how you're sitting there and you're rethinking. I'm telling you, it was just like I was the target. So you're rethinking even what I saw, even though I wasn't on all the conversations that she had with them, even with what I witnessed myself. And so I had meticulous notes going, this is happening. She goes, so let me be clear. She let me finish, which was very nice. She said, so you're not the one that's being targeted. I said, well, not per se. I said, I'm affected by it and I'm the manager.
Correct.
Because at this time they hadn't done any retaliation against me at this point. So what she said is, this office is set up for individuals who are victimized. And so we would need the target to come in. She says, you're more than welcome to come back in with her, but we need that individual to come and file the complaint. So I had to have a conversation
and
with
what? No, and I apologize for cutting you off. I know we have a little drag here in recording. What is infuriating to me about that response to you is you were coming to her as a bystander. You were coming to her as a victim. You were coming to her as someone who is experiencing trauma and instability in your workplace, and it's affecting you. And she completely dismissed that.
Yes.
She didn't want to entertain it. It didn't even matter to them.
Yep.
And it is such a violation of all people, the bystander, that experiences bullying in the workplace, because their mental health is drastically affected. Like you shared, the anxiety, the stress, after a big blow up one day, you're like, I can't even go back to that place today.
Right.
You were a victim as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So disappointing to hear that. So tell us the end story. Did the target take you and say, come on, girl, let's go do this.
She said, at this point, I'm near retirement. She said, I wouldn't even want to put you through that. She said, because she knew what I was dealing with. She knew what I was up against. But at least me doing that and then continuing to go back to HR, because see, once you do go to HR, they do have a file. So then you can keep going back.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Correct.
So after every, little incident, I'd go back. And it seemed to like let up a little bit. So they must have been talking to them, letting them know, listen,
Sure.
there's a case, So short of the long, at least my employee was able to retire with dignity and when she wanted to. But I wish that I would have known, and this is really what started me on my road to being more knowledgeable of workplace bullying and really taking the next initiative. Okay, what can I do? So I'm an advocate, right? Well, what can I do to help prevent workplace bullying? And so, she was able to retire in her time. It was not an easy road. So she did retire that year, like a couple months later, but she did it at her own time. And she did it with her resignation letter. She wasn't written up, etc. She was able to retire with dignity. And at the end of the day, that made me feel good because she felt good about that. Would I want it more done? Absolutely. Is that manager still in place today? I believe so. I believe both managers are still in place today, I believe. But honestly, I think, Ms. Camay, is because we don't have laws within the United States to hold them accountable. I think once we get that, then everything else will trickle down. I think the civil rights will have to adjust how they see me as a victim or bystander or target. I think it will just have a trickle down effect. Maybe not quickly, but that's my next, that's on my agenda next, to help ensure that we've got some laws within the United States.
Yeah, well, that brings us to the Dignity at Work Act that I've actually shared with you, and that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because I did see you as an advocate, and I do know that you are a matriarch for that social justice and that social change.
Yes.
And the Dignity at Work Act is exactly that. It is proposed legislation that eliminates or that attempts to eliminate bullying from the workplace. It offers remedy for targets, and it also does offer protection for employers who do the right thing. And so we are diligently working around the country. We are definitely chatting with you about becoming a bill director in the state of Ohio.
Yes.
Pushing legislation there. But you're absolutely right, Christal. That is the only way that our American workforce has any chance of surviving workplace bullying is for legislature to pass and adopt laws that make it illegal. Now, will that make people stop doing it? Well, no, it doesn't. But passing the bill and having it adopted into law actually provides a remedy for targets.
Yes.
And we're very, very passionate about that. If anybody that's watching, if you are interested in the Dignity at Work Act, we are partnering with the National Workplace Bullying Coalition nonprofit, who's actually introducing the ALA. It's a great organization. We're looking for volunteers. We're also looking for bill directors around the country. But Ohio's not the table, kind of like Ohio's not the table. So I really wanted to stress the importance of you, Christal, in this entire process. You as a bystander, you as a commander, you are a person who is in a position of authority and power. And for you to be an advocate in that position is, I mean, it's immeasurable. It honestly is immeasurable. And for you to continue moving forward in your career, and you to continue to be an advocate, and for you courageous and stand out or stand up and speak out about what you see is very notable, very, very notable. And if we never speak again, if if you decide to go in some different direction, I know that this is something that you will continue to do.
Absolutely. Yes.
For the targets.
Yes. Even if I'm gray-haired, if listen, I may be old. And another way, Ms. Camay, to tackle it, I know a lot of times when you're trying to push something through a bill, a law, people like to see research. And so another way I'm going about tackling, and I know within the organization that you're in also that you've got some people along with yourself that have the qualifications and are pushing forward to ensure that this happens.
Correct.
But what I've done with my education is I am a doctoral candidate, ABD, so all but dissertation.
Yes,
and thank you. And my dissertation is the relationship between workplace bullying, leader narcissistic tendencies, and organizational culture in the United States. And so I am 4 years into completing the first 3 chapters. So all but dissertation, I'm looking to complete everything. I'll have a doctoral, I'll have a doctorate in organizational management, organizational development. And so I know that that's another way to go about helping to ensure that this will take place.
Yes. And my heart is pouring out to you. I mean, it's so amazing. We need more people like you. Let me be specific. We need more women of color like you and myself.
Yes.
Who are advocating for this. We
absolutely
need more of this. We absolutely need more of this. Tell people, like, we could talk for an hour. We certainly could. We're running out of time. I want people to connect with you. Tell people where they can connect with you on YouTube. How can they subscribe to your channel?
Well, you could go to Workplace Keys to Success, and then when you do advertise this video, we'll make sure to put the link in there on YouTube so you can find me, Workplace Keys to Success. I'm also on Anchor with a podcast, and then you can reach me via email, and I'll leave that email address also. It's WKS, so that's Workplace Keys to Success, .drckp@gmail.com.
Wonderful. We will have those links down here in the comments for you guys. Be sure to connect with Christal. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel. She puts out consistently tools and resources and information on the topic of workplace bullying, also in a professional corporate environment, how to navigate through that. Just wonderful information. Please connect with her. Subscribe to her channel. Put the link down here in the comments. Christal, thank you so much for joining me. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you. I thank you so much for sharing this topic on being a bystander in a workplace bullying situation and sharing your experience. I thank you for what you're doing as an advocate, and I hope to see you with the National Workplace Bullying Coalition very, very soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome so much. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Have a fabulous day today. Remember, walk in your greatness every day. Be bold, be courageous. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.